World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Hey, what's happening? What's up? Urbanology.
Good afternoon. I'm Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, The Art of War. And for many people who are new to our show, William Anthony Rogers is my birth name. It's kind of a play on words. Plus, for many years, I taught the Sun Tzu version of The Art of War at City College for many years. It has become a pretty much guide to some of the strategic planning and management that I do through Urbanology Systems, which is an opportunity for people to connect. Found that was something that was a need of and felt that void. For the last 14 months, there has been an awakening for many people of issues that many people of color, especially African Americans, have known all of their lives. The systemic racism and what that has done and how it has affected all of us in this country. Based on that, things like Tulsa, which took, there was a great celebration acknowledging an understanding of the tremendous tragedy of Tulsa, which took place June the 30th. The 31st to the 1st of June, the 31st to the 1st of June. And the idea was that May 31st, June 1st, in Tulsa, 100 years ago, there was a tremendous race riot that destroyed a lot of properties. And that had been covered up for a long period of time. So for many people, this year was the first time that they really were able to focus on it. I'm also happy to say that Soul City was there to do a lot of the filming. Dr. Yana Woodhouse received a Pioneers Award, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the second half of the show. But as we start to again unveil many of the things that have created this racial disorder, I think racism is a health disorder, and the more we unveil it, the more we begin to understand some of the things that have been done and are still being done. Uh, we are moving very rapidly in the next couple of days into Juneteenth, which is June the 19th. And a lot of people are still not really familiar with that, but in uh, in 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was formally signed. However, Texas, being the father state from the Union, it took 2 years, and it was on June 19th, 1865, that Union troops went into Galveston, Texas, to enforce the freedom of slaves, which meant that for the United States, actually, it was 1865 when all African Americans or Africans who were in America were set free. And so Juneteenth is now being recognized more so. It wasn't taught in elementary school, but it is something now that may soon be a national holiday. I know for New York State and about 47 other states of the Union, it is a state holiday. So as we start to move into this, as the kids become woke in a sense, and move into this understanding of where we were and where we are and where we're going to go, my guest for today is a brilliant woman who's a sculptress and a wonderful artist. And the subject really is there was a monument in Harlem on the eastern end of Central Park. And it was honoring Dr. J. Moran Sims. And it was there for some time until the community and many people had concerns because of the work that Sims did, or I should say, the harm that he did by experimenting and using poor women, especially black women, girls, to experiment and to do a number of things that were really non-clinical. And that went on for some time. So there was an outcry as to, well, why are we using this person who created these horrible, inhuman, are we making, well, there should be a statue in Harlem to not praise that. So there was a major campaign that went on. And this was before COVID. And Vinnie Bagwell was able to actually be awarded the contract to put together a replacement for the Sim statue. And I would like to have her come on now so that you can meet this woman, because pretty soon, it's been a long time. When I say a long time, I guess longer for you than everyone else, but this took place, and the award was in 2019. And I think tomorrow or pretty soon, we're going to revisit what is the status of this, because it's been a while. And of course, COVID has shut down a lot of things. But sometimes timing is everything, because we're coming back in this new Black Lives. So I'm pretty sure that your conversation for this upcoming update will be positive. However, we all know that it's important to let as many people know about what's going on because we get by the help of our friends. So, Vinny, how are you doing?
I'm well. I can't tell you what it's like post 2020 in the public art realm. Um, last year, this time, I was at a cookout at my parents' house. I hadn't seen them in a couple of months and hadn't seen my daughter in 4 months, which is a really long time because, we've never been that far apart. And, we were social distancing, we were having a barbecue, and we're trying to say goodbye. And my father keeps the TV on CNN, and kept seeing like the camera pan, and there were fires everywhere. And, I was trying to talk to him, but I'm like, fire in Los Angeles, fire in Chicago, fire in London, fire in Brooklyn. Wait a minute, the revolution has begun? And so, I went home and was like, oh, this is going to be epic. And I never dreamed that the protests would go on and that it would be global, I think that's probably the most interesting thing about the last year is that the whole world
Mhm.
acknowledged that, you know what, come on. It's like, take your knee off the black race's neck. And so, in the public art arena, we were very much aware of, the cultural disparities. We've been talking about racial democracy and all that for a couple of years now, and people have seen it in dribs and drabs. Example, they had to call the National Guard to take down the 4 equestrian sculptures in Louisiana.
Mhm.
Then Baltimore took theirs down overnight with no notice, gone, book. We just took it down. And so these things they've been happening for the last couple of years, but last year really was pivotal in the public art arena because now everybody's thinking about racial democracy in the public art realm. People are looking at their towns, their villages, their cities portfolio of public art, and they're realizing that they're short. And so my phone is just ringing. People want to know, how do we start this? We want to do something. What do we do? And I think that, it begins with commitment. Commitment is what makes things become a reality. You have to focus on it and stay with it.
Mhm.
And so, that's the biggest aha. One of the marvelous things that happened last year was that Governor Andrew Cuomo, his office called up and asked me, "Do you want to work?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." So, they made me an essential worker, which meant that anybody who was working with me on a project got to open when everybody else was shut down. And people like, "Thank you, Vinny. Oh my God."
Mhm.
And so, my world was uninterrupted, by pandemic. But the interesting thing about the Victory Commission is that 5 months went by before a pandemic even happened. It's like it doesn't take 5 minutes to send out a draft.
Right.
And then, the oversight committee had been called in to review the whole process. And Chairman Jimmy Van Bramer had asked Commissioner Casales to go to the mayor to release the funds for Victory because, hi, we're in New York, and this is the largest repository for public art, and, we should be in the fray. So,
Mhm.
Mayor de Blasio released the funds on the 2nd of January. But still, it took another 4 months before I got a draft. I just got a draft last month. And of course, the draft has issues. And, my attorneys looked at it and, revised it. And so now we're waiting for them to respond to our revisions. The question is, how many times does it have to bounce back and forth? There were a lot of surprises and things that were not anticipated. And, the big talk show now is about righting the wrongs in the process.
Right. When you say righting the wrongs, what exactly do you mean?
In other words, there's something called best practices. In every arena, there's something called best practices. If you're a
Mhm.
doctor, this is how you do it. If you're an Indian chief, this is how you do it. In the public art realm, we have something called best practices. Percent for art is a law, and
Mhm.
inside that law, there are certain terms that you're supposed to adhere to.
Mhm.
Example, one of them is transparency.
Right.
So how do you make decisions without talking to me? You know, how do you pull out $225,000 out of my $1 million budget and you don't warn me, ask me, or anything? I just find out when I read your contract 20 months later.
Hmm.
I mean,
So,
that's just an example.
so the concept of systemic racism continues to flourish. However, there now is a great springboard in order to challenge these things because everybody is trying to backstep. Uh, you have a, a session coming up soon.
Yes,
When is that? And is it virtual? And can community take part in it?
yes. It's tomorrow. Um, it's interesting. I got the link, but I'm going to try to look and see. It's like, how do you find out about it? Hold on one second. Um, well, I'll tell you one way you can find out about it. Hi, I'm Vinnie Bagwell.
Mm.
If you go to my page is wide open. You don't have to be a friend to see my page. The top post has the link.
Mhm.
You have to register. So also I'm on LinkedIn. So again, if you just write down my name and search, either go to my LinkedIn page or go to my, and I have two Vinnie Bagwell pages, but the thing of it is that the second post down says, please register and share. And what does it say here? Wednesday, June 15th, from 6 to 8 p.m. And it's hosted by the New York Academy of Medicine. Through the Percent for Art program of New York City's Department of Cultural Affairs, Vinnie Bagwell was selected as an artist to replace the J. Marion Sims statue with a new artist piece titled Victory Beyond Sims. The COVID-19 pandemic halted progress on her work. The Committee to Empower Voices for Healing and Equity is sponsoring a community conversation where we provide updates on the process and discuss the larger city effort to remove, remodel, or reframe controversial statues in New York City. Artist Vinnie Bag will be in conversation alongside writer and medical ethicist Harriet Washington, author of Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. RSVP nyam.org/events/events victory dash beyond dash sims /. It's easier just to go to my Facebook page and
Probably, I was going to say it's probably easier just to go to Vinnie Bagwell on Facebook and do it.
you can find it. So it's exciting. They gave me a half a dozen questions to answer, and I think the questions covered the gamut. So my whole presentation is just geared towards answering the questions to inform the community of the process where we are, and to make recommendations to the mayor.
And what we'll do is to make sure that on the tourism board page and on the Soul City page, we'll have this particular interview, but also make a note for people to understand the time.
Yeah.
And before the end of the show, we'll go through the time again. But I wanted to uh, allow for individuals. Well, there are two things. One, to make sure that people can go and view this because we get by in the numbers that we have. We get by the help of our friends. So this is a very important event. And if you have the opportunity to visit this virtual, because they count the numbers, and the more people that are looking, the greater their um,
Well, it's
target
an important
will be.
subject. It's a really important subject because it has happened so many times in this country. I mean, J. Marion Sims became the father of gynecology on the backs of 12 enslaved women. We only know the names of three of them, but that does not discount the other nine. And what makes his experimentation so horrific to think about is that he didn't use anesthesia or painkillers. And women know, even today in modern age, when you go to get your pap smear, it's uncomfortable. And to think that someone's poking around on your insides with no mitigation of the pain, it's just cringing. And the fact that he figured out what he wanted to figure out, and then he went to Europe and used his same techniques on white women, except for he gave them painkillers and anesthesia. It's like, really?
And his statue was in East Harlem.
Yeah, now it's in the cemetery with him, which I think is appropriate. No, I think that's really appropriate. But the thing of it is that there are people who, particularly white people, who do not understand the need to remove offensive public artworks. They think that we're trying to change history, and it's like, no, we're asking for cultural equity. We're asking for a balance of the narrative. There are places where those artworks can go, like museums and things like that, where people can still learn about that particular person or that particular event without destroying the artwork. We're not talking about destroying artworks. We're talking about repurposing them and replacing them with artworks that really represent the diversity of American culture.
Well, it's always interesting, this concept of let's make America great again. But, you know, it, I think the first lady had mentioned, I don't remember when America was ever great.
Yeah.
you know.
And we know what they mean when they say that, but fortunately there are enough evolved people that, as much as we've seen of the reality of this country in terms of how people think, the fact that, last year when they were doing the election and they were showing the numbers as they were happening, was absolutely alarming to see the divide in the country. And to see that there's a whole big chunk of people who are disinformed. That's alarming. And so the beautiful thing about art in public places is that it's accessible. It's easy to roll up on a public artwork and leave like 5 to 10 minutes later and know something that you did not know when you rolled up. It's so much easier. I mean, you could watch a movie, you could read a book. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could get informed, but public art is accessible 24/7, and it's soft, it's easy.
Now, Vinny, you I sent some photos, and I believe that we have a photo of the victory image. And if you
Yes.
can show that, please explain your thoughts, because obviously you had to take Dr. Sims and turn it around to represent what he did not represent, so that people in the future can actually have a better understanding. So,
Yeah.
how
Well,
did you come to where you are?
there's a lot of variables that I take into account when I'm starting at the very, very beginning of conception. I have to look at all the variables. So, for instance, you got $1 million budget, which is a sizable budget. That means, wow, you got a little room to get creative. Okay, great. Then you have to look at the timeline. It's like, oh, they want it in a year? Okay, so that means I can't make 12 people. You know what I'm saying? It's like, even if $1 million covered 12 people, I can't make 12 people in a year. So you can't, so you begin to try to deduce what's practical. I am a representational figurative sculptor. In other words, if I'm doing you, it's going to look like you. The difference between me and perhaps other sculptors is that I employ bas-relief techniques in a non-traditional way. Bas-relief is a traditional sculpting technique. A lot of people don't do it. They say it's hard. I'm like, well, I guess it is if you don't know how to do it. But I was able to figure it out. I'm untutored. I didn't go to school for art. I just, all this time from the beginning, when my parents let me try a pencil, I try stuff. And because God whispers in my ear or however it happens, a lot of things work for me. So the point of it is that I am using a traditional sculpting technique and kind of stylizing it for storytelling. And so my work is narrative, and so in this particular instance, one of the things that really was at the front of my mind is that I know Central Park. I competed for Central Park in 2004 for the northwest corner of Central Park for Frederick Douglass. And in that process, I learned a lot about the Harlem community. I learned a lot about the Conservancy's attitude, the New York City's attitude. I learned a lot in that process. One of the things is I know that how the Conservancy feels about preservation. And so I said, okay, well, I'm gonna take that approach. I want to design something that looks like it's been here the whole time, like it goes with everything else that's here. Now, if you know Central Park has something like 28 sculptures of men, no women. Until last year, when they put up Monumental Women, it was all men. But nevertheless, I'm looking at all of those sculptures. That's something else. That's not Victory. That's Montgomery, New York. You want to talk about that?
Well, no, I think we were just showing some of your work, but continue with that.
No, you have to go back then because that's confounding. People confuse people. At any rate, the point of it is that I looked around in a 5-mile radius to see what is in my realm. So across the street, you've got the Museum of New York. Up the street, you've got the entrance to the Conservancy Gardens and the Vanderbilt Gate. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I love wrought iron. So I said to my architect, Bryce Turner, BCT Designs is the partner for this, and Dan Dunstan is my senior landscape architect who actually designed this with me. I said to him, take that Vanderbilt Gate and give me something feminine to go in that space, because I'm throwing out the plinth. The plinth that J. Marion Sims is on, it's ugly. I don't like it. I wouldn't use it anyway. I'm throwing that out. There's a hole in the wall. I think I want a wrought iron gate. Make it be like a defunct entrance. Like you can't get through the gate, but if you could, you can see through into the gardens. So that was the first thing. The second thing was I was trying to figure out, if I'm only making one person, there she is. If I'm only making one person, what is that person? Now there are 12 women. How do I represent the 12 women with one person? So again, I'm just kind of doing certain kinds of math. And so interestingly enough, sometimes, and I do this when I'm writing too, sometimes I just start anywhere, like start in the middle. You have to start at the beginning, so I said, let's name it. Let's name it a V name, like Vinnie. So I was like, oh, what's a good name? Beyond Sims. I guess they want me to keep that part. So then I decided to name it Victory, because when this artwork is done, it will be a victory for the community, because they fought for 12 years so far to get it done. And I am almost certain that there's going to be like a major party in New York City and Harlem somewhere, because it's like, oh my God, we've lived long enough. So I named the piece before I even conceived what it was. So then I Googled, what does victory mean? There's what I think it means, and then there's what it means. And so one of the definitions says, victory is always depicted by an angel in the art world. I was like, okay, well, let me Google Black angels. Well, there are no Black angels in the public art realm. If you find one, you let me know. And so I said, are you kidding me? What does that mean? Does that mean that Black people have been marginalized out of heaven? What does it mean that there are no Black angels in the public realm? Well, you know what? This is New York. Hi, I'm from New York, not New York City, but New York. And New York is diverse. I think that New York should kick out the first angel. So I settled on that. And so ultimately, I kind of went from there. And it's like, well, what is she doing? So I had her holding a staff that is the Arc of Asclepius, which is the medical symbol for medicine. And then, of course, I started delving. It's like there's the Hippocratic Oath, which doctors have to take when they become doctors. There's a clause in that oath that says you're not supposed to hurt women and children. So this man broke his oath. Okay. All right. So that's decided. And then I was like, I really want to work with fire. And I asked the city of New York, was it allowed? And I was told yes. That was the first day when they told me that you're a finalist. I was like, okay, I got questions. Can I use live fire? I was told yes. Now I'm being told no. So I may not be able to have live fire. I may have to put a sculpted flame in her hand, which is unfortunate. But the point of it is that that's where the idea came from. There's another photograph of the full sculpture. I see it in the sidebar. I ended up using her dress as a canvas to illustrate women. So because there are 12 of them, I put 12 on the front, 12 on the back, so that any way you look at her, you're always going to see 12 women. And then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, I'm gonna make this be a women of color thing. It's not just about Black women, because Black people mix with other people. So you got Black Hispanics, you got Black Asians, I got Black people mixed with all kinds of people. So I'm not gonna just do African looking people, because they were mixing back then too. So when you look at the women's faces and you go through them, there are women that look like they're Native American. There are women that look like they're Hispanic. There is a woman that looks like she's Asian. And again, it's to kind of encompass the idea of this is about all women, and the fact that, frankly, we should get to rule what happens to our bodies. Over the course of the last couple of years, the middle states, Wisconsin, Arkansas, and I forget whatever the other one is, they're taking away women's rights. And it's like, ladies, honestly, if you're not vigilant, we could go backwards. We just finished celebrating 100 years of women's suffrage. We saw a couple of years ago where they put children in cages and sent their parents home. Wild stuff can still happen here if you're not vigilant. And so the idea was to make people aware of the power of women. We are now celebrating the women who made medical history possible. That's what this piece is about. And so I put it on a rainbow granite pedestal. I elevated her 5 feet, which is not the norm. Normally, I like my sculptures to be much lower and accessible. But again, I was trying to mimic the scale of other sculptures that are in the park. And then I also asked for a template. Somewhere on there, you'll see there's a I took up the cobblestone pavers, and I said, I want to put down granite pavers. I'm trying to make a statement. And so, my thinking was that, I told the architect, give me something that has to do with the light. And he's like, what is it supposed to represent? I said, enlightenment. It's about the universal light of democracy. This country talks about democracy, but we don't practice what we preach. I want to talk about that in a kind of metaphoric sort of way. Scroll down for a second, because I saw it. You passed it. It's at the bottom. Down. Okay, so below the image with the red tree, that one. Those 2 bottom ones. Yeah, hi, there it is. Okay, so again, I asked, may I remove the pavers? May I have a 30 by 30 square foot footprint? I asked this on day 1. I was told yes. So I designed it. Now, of course, the big challenge is to see whether or not the landmark board will allow me to remove the pavers, because I'm not sure that they're not landmarked, but hopefully they will comply, because I'm supposed to be changing the perception of place. This is the goal of this artwork. So if you go down to the next one, below that, the next image, hi, that's night lighting.
Wow.
And, again, I got a standing ovation for this. We did something like that at Lincoln Center. If you go to Lincoln Center, they're using LED lights, whatever. It's the same thing. It's low maintenance. It's not that deep. It's not a really expensive thing to maintain or anything like that. But, when the architect asked me, what feeling are you going for? I'm like, wow. I want wow, 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 wow. I want it to stop traffic day or night. When people drive by, I don't want them to ignore. I want them to be like, whoa, pull over. What is that? I want to see. I want to command the eye. I want to hold the eye. I want people to look. I want them to know the story.
Well, it sounds like you have made your point very clear as it relates to your work.
Well, the challenge is, the challenge is getting past the design committee. The city of New York is not partial to representational figurative artwork. And I
Mhm.
say that based on their actions over the years.
Mhm.
You know, they're partial. The point of it is that I would like to retain the integrity of this design. The big question is whether or not they'll let me. We'll see what happens.
Now, Vinny, what can listeners, what can people do in order to support you? I mean, obviously, it's going to be important to tune in tomorrow, and we have to, before we let you go, get the time and understand that we'll go to Vinnie Bagwell at Facebook to learn how we can register and the like. But besides that, are there letters or what can?
You know, if you're a letter writer, I'm gonna say, I don't know who reads the letters that go online. You know, I'm old school. It's like take it and drop it in the mail. Write
Mhm.
the mayor. Write the mayor and tell him why it matters to you that this artwork come to fruition. Talk about why it matters to have the narrative in New York City balanced. Talk about why the city must balance the narrative. Amazing. Mayor De Blasio, shout out. Mayor De Blasio just committed 25 million to creating new public artworks that balance the narrative, and I want to give him a big high five before he exit and say thank you because in order to be able to implement cultural equity, in order to be able to practice racial democracy, you're going to need money.
Mhm.
And the fact that he set that aside is remarkable, and I'm thrilled by that. As a Black person, before I even talk about being an artist, as a Black person, I am thrilled that the city of New York has put the money where their mouth is. It's a start.
Well, one of the things, and for listeners to know, this coming Friday at 6 o'clock, and it's somewhat of an open invitation. The mayor and the first lady will be in St. Nicholas Park on 135th Street to celebrate Juneteenth, which which is kind of interesting as to how that's going to go. Eh, but nevertheless, that's what the uh, invite is entered, and the
What time is that?
6 p.m.
Unfortunately, I cannot be there. But
And
it would be nice if other people were there on behalf
and
of.
and that's the point. Since they are going to be there, and there may be questions or what have you, if you're listening to this and you can make it, uh, and it's in the park, we can say, well, Central Park. What about the Victory statue?
What park is that?
St. Nicholas Park. That's on the
Nicholas Park. Okay, right.
135th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. Uh, and it,
Hmm.
and I'm sure that they'll probably have it. There's a kind of a rotunda right up the stairs, so that's probably the only place that they
Hmm.
have it. But
Yes.
it's not that large, so it's going to be interesting as to how that's going to take place. But the bottom line is that they will be there, and if people are
Hmm.
looking at this, uh, if it's not the mayor, perhaps one of his aides or something, just to drop the line that, and especially after tomorrow, because we'll get a feel as to what's going on tomorrow.
Well,
Uh,
you can always check in with your city council person too. Inez Barron is shepherding Victory as well. I mean, she would be someone you could always reach out to
mhm.
her office and find out like what are you doing? What can I do? I want to get on the bandwagon. That's another thing. It's always good to know your city council person, for the district that you're.
And the interesting thing about this is that about it earlier, but everybody wants to have a bandwagon to stand on. So the timing is interesting too. I'm sure that there'll be a lot of elected officials hanging around, and this is a good subject.
Yes. Yes. Well, the thing of it is that again, I was originally applauding the mayor and the first lady a couple of years ago when they announced She Built NYC. I mean, I was jumping up and down. I was so thrilled. They had announced that they were putting up 10 million, for artwork in every borough. And I was like, yes, that's like one of those is mine. Okay, here we go. And I was excited from a Black perspective, but also excited from a public artist perspective, because you don't see that many calls for public art about Black history, Black people, Black culture. You just, not like you see for everything else. So for the city of New York to pick up, that torch and ignite it, I was just like cheering. And so, as time went on, when I saw the victory call, I was like, oh, see, that one's mine. I want that one. And so, normally I would pay New York City no mind because of, the history of their Percent for Art program. But I was just like, no, that I have to win that one. And so I went for it. But, the thing of it is that there are a lot of public artworks that are on the back burner of New York City. I mean, there's the Tito Puente Commission. There's the Abolitionist Commission for Brooklyn. There's Shirley Chisholm. There's a whole bunch of them. I would like to see them all released. Artists pretty much work at home. Whether it's a pandemic or not. There are ways to work it out. So in my mind, I don't see why there has to be a moratorium. If that money is going to remain allocated for public art, well, then let artists work. So, on behalf of all of us, make us all essential personnel. At this time when the whole country is listening and wanting to see leadership and movement in the real direction of democracy, it's like, let the artist lead the way.
Well, the governor has today made a major announcement. This is the 15th that things are opening up again.
Yes.
Before I let you go, Vinnie, let people know how they might be able to reach you. The best way, if they are looking to have something done, if in their community, we know we're local, national, and international as far as viewers. So
Right.
let
That's
people know
easy.
that.
That's easy. VinnieBagwell.com. If you go to my website, if you Google, it'll come up. VinnieBagwell.com. There's a contact section. When you email me, I get it. I talk to people. I respond. I give out my phone number. I'm accessible. I'm always interested in finding out what people are doing. I don't mind giving directions, advice, or whatever. The thing of it is that, the public art arena is a white patriarch arena. There are not many Black people in the public art arena. And it's the sort of thing where, now folks are really wanting to create new works that represent the true color of their community, the diversity of their community. You've got communities like Irvington, New York, which is a very affluent, old money community that's decided that they want to honor the enslaved Africans. Sarah Cox is the mother of that project. She's like a terrier with a bone. She shepherded through. Amazingly, the trustee board voted it down, and the people had a temper tantrum. There's another one. People going off. They overturned it. They had to have an emergency meeting to overturn their own decision to say, okay, you can have one. And so I'm just starting the conception of that piece. But the point of it is that they know where their enslaved Africans are buried. A lot of places do not. And so, there are folks who are realizing that, if they've got an interesting piece of information, they should exalt it with public art. So, for example, I'm doing a public art project for Montgomery, New York, which is Orange County, just above the Woodbury Commons. 86 children buried alongside the road. When I say children, I mean like middle school, 20 years old, young people, 86 of them buried along the side of the road in the woods in shallow graves. I had to call the Department of Agriculture and ask them to do a GPR survey because I was afraid to do anything. I'm like, tell me where they are. I need to know. And so we found out where they are, but I'm telling you, 18 inches below the surface. And so the point of it is that, I wanted to be very respectful. I wanted to really keep the space in mind as well as the community, so that people could experience it but not destroy it, because this is one of the very, very few pristine African burial grounds in New York State. And so, people are now starting to come out of the woodwork. There's an African burial ground in Van Cortlandt Park. They're just starting to talk about it. And, so now, it's interesting because there are some folks that know exactly where the enslaved Africans are buried. And for those folks that don't know, they still feel like there's a responsibility to acknowledge them. These are the people who built the very foundation of this state, this country, and they deserve to be recognized and honored.
Well, Vinnie, thank you so much for your time and
Thank
for your work and for your art. We'll go to Vinnie Bagwell at Facebook to register. It's important that we do the support. If anyone is able to go to 135th Street on Friday, uh, tell the mayor that Tony Rogers sent you, and we want you to talk about, the project, Victory Beyond Sims.
Yes. Can we please execute and move on?
Move on. So thank you. I wanted to have Matt McCoy come in, and you can stay, or you can, I know that you're busy. We're going to do a little brief update on Tulsa because Matt had his whole crew go out to Tulsa the 31st to the 1st. And Matt, I know that we have a couple of minutes, but I wanted to make sure that you gave a little update. And this is really, and the reason why I wanted you to kind of hang around, Vinny, because they're still doing things in Tulsa. So there may very well be, based on this new movement and new acknowledgement, sculptures that may be viable. And if those happen, Matt now is
It has to be imminent because the reparations are due. It has to be imminent. It's nice that they're giving money to the survivors, but how many survivors are there? You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, you owe African Americans more than that. You do.
And the story, the story of it, and I know based on Matt's work, which is always wonderful, they've asked him to be part of the annual event that will take place now. Events, but now it's going to be upgraded a little bit now that Matt Man is involved. But I had not thought about it, but as we were talking, and I know that Matt was going to do a little bit of update. I think that it's pretty much the stars are aligned because if that conversation comes up, obviously we have somebody that we could put the name into the pot in order to do that. Matt, what's your thought?
Well, I think you're right, Tony. I do have the power to make it happen. If it's going to happen, I can fan the flames, and make it happen. One of the beautiful things that developed while we were there, I'm thankful for being there, being the only black TV network asked to come, and no one else really showed up at all. And there's a whole bunch. We'll talk. That's a whole nother show. As to how we'll be talking about, what happened, and with Biden showing up and messing stuff up, and just being totally disrespectful and so forth and so on. In my eyes. But the event was wonderful to be able to walk the streets of Tulsa, where those people were burned and killed and shot, during that time period, and to see the hunger in the faces of the people who still live there to want to rebuild it.
Yeah.
No black people own anything there now. They're building all these brand new condos and other things, but none of us own it. And
Matt, there's new museum that's being constructed that most of the people, from what I was reading and hearing based on your reporting, felt that money should have went in to help train people rather than putting up a museum. That is the case. But perhaps we can talk to some of your contacts to see, have they commissioned a sculpture to go in front of the museum, or is there opportunities to have some sort of a sculpture in the museum to represent going on from a person of color, a woman of color, since that's the whole point.
I think that's right on time. It's perfect.
It's called Percent for Art.
There you go.
Okay, like what is the budget for that museum, and what percent have you set aside for public art? That's how you go at that. It's like if you've got a $50 million museum, then a percent is a nice chunk of change to make artwork, and that's a fair amount of money to ask for. 1% of your budget for your museum should have been set aside for public art. You don't make public art be like a brooch on a dress, like an afterthought.
Right.
That's something that should have been thought of at the very front end.
All right. So I don't know much about
It's been thought about
yet,
but we might not have been in that narrative.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know much about that museum piece right now. So I'm still getting my feet wet in Tulsa since it was my idea actually to.
But we can ask the question. I mean,
I will ask the question. We're dealing with former Mayor Stevenson, who was the mayor of Langston, which is Langston College.
Maybe let him see the
this
interview and say, "Hey, look, since this is the interview that we're having, we're talking about it here. Have him go to your page and see what's happening."
Well, that's a given. I will talk to her. Tara Renee and I are working on the project together with Mayor Stevenson, and she's really a wonderful person. She's gung ho about us. What we're going to do is every year from this point on, we're going to do what I'm calling the Black Wall Street Soul Achievement Awards. And that award show will be an award show not just for entertainment or art, but for business and other people in the community. And so I'm putting that together now. And we're working on the venue for next year already. So we're already knee deep in it. And we'll have all the celebrities come out and we'll do a really great tribute every year to Black Wall Street and the creativeness and all.
And 2 years from now, we'll have Vinnie receiving an award for the sculpture.
Well, you know what? And so, you know what? It's funny you say that. And Vinnie and I have talked about this before. And some kind of way, I'm gonna persuade her to do this. Is I'm thinking, and I'll put out there in public, that we were grappling. They asked me in our meeting yesterday, matter of fact, did I have the award already? Figured out what was the award going to be. I said, no, I have one idea, but my major idea, I think Vinnie should create that award. I think Vinnie should create the miniature statue for that award, whatever it's going to be, and I would be, totally fine with just leaving it in her hands to create whatever it is she creates. I know it's going to be wonderful, and that would be the official award.
Which could be, I'm out of my lane, but it could be a representation of the statue that's on the plaza of the museum. So every year,
right? They can't. Right? Somebody can walk by and touch it. Yeah, I got my award. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. The whole point of
put it out there.
Yeah, no, it's out there. It's we're already dealing with sponsors. We're already dealing with the people that we need to deal with. We'll be booking the hotel within the next 30 days that we're going to have the events at, and so forth and so on. So this will take place every year in May for Black Wall Street. We're going to do a 3-day event. There will be some live entertainment, and then there'll be a economic forum that Dr. Yana will be in charge of. Now that she was given the official, and that shocked us. We knew that she was getting an award. Matter of fact, we knew she was getting 2 awards at the event. But the second award at the big show, they asked the women to come back to the stage who received awards, and officially Yana didn't think that she belonged up there. And this young lady, and there's a picture of Yana hugging this young woman. It was a young woman who went up to her and said, "Please go up there. You're supposed to be up there." And she was touched by Yana's speech about money and finance and Black Wall Street. So Yana went up, so she's on the stage. So she's the last person on the end of the stage. They get into the ceremony. Queen Mother Blakely is talking. She's from Harlem, and she's talking and she's giving stuff, and then she turns to Yana and says, "You are charged at this point. You are in charge of the new Black Wall Street." And I didn't expect that. Nobody expected that. We was like, and Yana didn't expect it. You see how I was like, me? You know what I'm saying? So Yana now has officially been charged to be the banker for the new Black Wall Street and to be the head person of it. So we might have to get a statue of Yana one day for stuff. You know what I'm saying? But things are moving quickly. They're blowing up. My phone is blowing up daily with people calling, asking for interviews. Matter of fact, Yana and I getting an award in Senegal at some point, I think in October. They asked us to get an award there for what we were doing with the community and, myself.
Yeah. Actually, there's an event, I think, on Thursday. Senegal is looking to be with us. We're kind of moving towards the end. Vinnie, thank you so much. And I have to do a full disclosure because I know a lot of my friends are watching. I'm promoting Vinnie because of her art. I'm promoting Vinnie because she's a beautiful person. Because most of the people will say, "Oh, she's another one of those Mackey twins." That's why, because they all they all know that my sisters from from college has been Karen and Sharon Wells. The Mackey twins.
Third twin, yeah.
And Sharon McGee, but Vinnie looks so much like them. So I know people will say, "I know what's happening."
That's funny.
Thing going on. And no, she may be a daughter from another mother or something like that, but she looks so much like them.
Soul sister. Yeah.
And
I'm the soul sister.
Who I'm sure, who are watching this and said, "Oh, another one of those things." But no, even if she was, I would be doing it anyway. I mean, I'm going to let you know. But it's just that when I first saw her, since the Mackey twins are so dear to me, I became a fan. I said, "Oh, I got a third one now." So I'm always going to be in your corner. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And Matt, I hope I planted that seed.
I'm glad to say because I'm gonna water it daily. Trust me.
So we can water it, and we'll tune in tomorrow. Good luck. I know there's a bunch of other stuff that's happening, but we have to make sure that when you get when Soul City has to be part of whatever that ceremony is going to be.
Oh yeah. We're gonna be a part of every ceremony from now on. So we're gonna make it happen.
Well,
so thank you.
Thank
very
you
much. Appreciate your
Take
time.
care, and of course, Matt, I appreciate everything that you do. And Vinnie, we will be in contact.
No problem.
Thank
We'll
you.
make sure. And if I can be helpful, whether it's through Soul City or the newspaper or the radio, any of those things, send me an email, and I'll put it out there.
Tony might just do an article on, do a front page article on Vinnie for the newspaper.
Which is a very good idea. And I'm wondering whether I should wait until the award comes. Well, let's see how this thing goes, because if not, we have to maybe push it a little bit.
Okay,
So let's see how this goes, and if not, Vinnie, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
You help me, I help you.
Yeah, we'll put something in the paper, and talk about that. This is a good time to do that. So,
yes, sir.
We'll be in contact.
All right.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Vinnie.
Take care.
Okay, so long then.
So, talk to you guys soon. All right. Bye-bye.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.